Week 7 in the books. We are live from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, in the heart of Packers country for Say It Like You See It. Also joining me, in crime, one of my best buddies of all time, Mr. Quinn Redmond, joining me from Texas. And Quinn, it's good to see you in. We are officially just about 50% of the way through with the NFL season. We're about 45% all the way through. And I believe it is time for us to officially say we have some mid-season grades. I don't think too much is going to change in the next week to week and a half to dissuade some of the grades that we're giving teams and also players. Let's start with you. Let's say welcome you in first. How are you? How have things been?
Oh, rocking and rolling. This morning was a pretty good day. I mean, it's a Wednesday, it's a hump day, but today was the day that I officially hit 50K on Instagram. So that was a kind of big milestone number. So now that I got that, we're pretty much off and rocking and rolling. And then we got wrestling practice tonight. So this is the first week that we're off rocking and rolling. So I'm super excited about that and super pumped that we got a team back in Frisco now that is an actual youth wrestling club and is all wrestling focused. It's not anything mixed with MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything. It is pure 100% wrestling.
We love to hear it. We love to hear it. Unfortunately, this is not a wrestling show, and we
No.
are not here to talk about wrestling. We're here to talk football and all things football,
Football, baby!
starting with, like I said, our week 7 kind of wrap up. We saw some underdog victories. We saw some blowout victories. We saw some teams that we thought were good prove out to be not so good. We saw some teams that were bad that we thought were bad prove to be even worse. So let's start with my graphic. This is my mid-season quarterback tier rankings. Could put that up real quick. All right, so I broke it down into 5 different categories. Obviously, now this is the mid-season, right? So this is not going into the season. This is not what I think are going to be happening later on this season. This is only right now where we are at currently. You have the MVPs. You've got earning the bag, and I'll explain each one as I go. You've got playing well, but then you've got hanging on by a thread, and of course, rounding at the bottom of this tier ranking. D is for dog water. So let's start with the first one, the MVPs. Obviously, these are the 3 best quarterbacks in the league as of right now this season in terms of how they're playing. You could mix and match any combination of quarterbacks you want on who's the best, who's second best, who's third best. As of right now, the top 3 guys that are playing in this 2023-2024 season are Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, is only 1 dropped ball away in the end zone from a 6-1 record. You've got Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously doing GOAT things with one of the most mediocre receiving cores I've ever seen. And then Josh Allen, who, even though has struggled at some points, it has been the cause of the Buffalo Bills to lose some games. Every time they win, he's usually putting up 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So you cannot discredit the production that he has had so far this season. Earning the bag, and, as we'll go down, I'll ask Quinn's opinion on this. Earning the bag is basically in reference to they're playing great. They're playing great football, not at an MVP level, but they are earning that next contract, right? So obviously Jalen Hurts has gotten that contract, but these are the guys that are playing like they want that big payday. Then you've got playing well, but which clearly is like you're playing good, but there's a question mark. That's how I did this. Like, is it the team's record? Is it individual success? What is the question mark that is following one of these players? Hanging on by a thread means you're just about this close from losing your job, but there's more 2 things that either you're doing or your team is doing that is keeping you from that bottom tier, from losing your job. And basically, D is for dog water, means every single one of these guys, minus Bryce Young, will be playing for a different team next year. So I'll start with the MVP category, Quinn. Do you see any problems with the MVP category, Lamar, Mahomes, and Allen?
Not with the first 2, but definitely with Josh Allen. I get, yes, Josh Allen has some highs, but honestly, the way that I look at it is like I think Josh Allen is honestly the newest Cam Newton. He's a type of guy that he has a great game, and then it's roller coaster. So you have a great game, and then it's plummets. and then he might have an okay week the next week as he's rising back up. But then if he plays kind of decent, and then if he has to play a bad team, he normally doesn't show up very well, and he plays really bad against bad teams. And as an MVP guy, you cannot be the sole reason that your team is losing to bad teams. He throws a lot of really bad picks. He has a lot of really bad turnovers. And for that reason, I would take him completely off of that first list because, yes, he does have a lot of those highs, but when your floor is that low and you are single-handedly the reason why your team is losing, I mean, you lost to the Jets and the Patriots in the same year. Like, that's pretty tough. And not only that, he got outplayed in both of those games by people who are both on the bottom of this tier list. So I think Josh Allen, I mean, if we want to keep three guys up there, I mean, I could easily bump whether it be Tua to some degree because it's like he still has to get the ball to Tyreek. Like, I get that. Like, it is Hill who's doing a lot of that work, and, he is running clear wide open, and he just blows past guys. Um, Kirk is playing very, very good. I think Kirk is kind of a bit of a mirage because Kirk has really good numbers, but Kirk situationally is kind of tough. So, like, leaving him there is actually okay. Um, I think Trevor Lawrence has bad numbers, but if you actually watch him play, he is one of the best quarterbacks that there is in this league. And there's a reason that, I look at him as a top 3, 4 guy just based off the fact that he's got poise, he's got the arm strength, he's got the mobility, he sees the field well. And in the last 17 or 18 games, essentially he's played one bad game and he lost to the Texans, in which we now know that the Texans are a lot more of an average team than a bad team. And then he has 3 losses to the Chiefs. So I can't really knock the guy too much for, his basically, if you accumulate the last season, half of this season, the last half of last season, he's easily played top 2, top 3, top 4 football. I think it's just his stats don't really show that. And then a lot of
Right.
people want to hang that first half against the Chargers on him, but then they forget that he then played absolutely outstanding in the second half and are the sole reason that they came back and won that game. So you can't have, oh, he threw 4 picks without saying, yeah, but he also played perfect in the second half and he's the reason why they won that football game. So, I mean, I would put Trevor Lawrence also because I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan, but I just think that Josh Allen he's purely ranked too high. Their 3-3 record. I mean, you'll see it later as we get into it of why I think the Bills are. I've now used the term mirage twice, and I haven't used that term in the last like 15 years. But the Bills are a mirage. You've described them in the past as being a heavyweight hitter who has a little bit of a glass chin, where it's like, hey, if someone hits back against the Bills and kind of gives them a little bit of a push, then the Bills don't entirely know what to do, and they just play down to their talent too much. But we can kind of go round and round. Really, realistically, for the most part, I mean, it's really not that bad of a graphic. I think, I don't know. I'd say Wilson maybe has gotten himself to hanging on by a thread. I think if he continues playing the way he is and is least competitive in these football games, he might be able to keep his backup spot for Aaron Rodgers as they go into next year. It helps having a guy who knows the system and knows what's going on. But realistically, outside of that, I mean, I don't really look at it. I mean, I don't think Anthony Richardson really played well in his 2 games. I mean, he played solid, but I mean, he's got now injury issues. I think Geno is playing better than just playing well, but I mean, there's still some issues there. But yeah, it's just kind of hard to really throw one guy high or low based off of the rest of what the team is doing. And I think even that's kind of the same with Herbert. It's like Herbert gets pulled down because his team and coach is so bad, but everything that he does is virtually outstanding.
Well, so here's I'm going to go back to your Russell Wilson point really quick. The reason I have Russell Wilson as low as I do in that D is for dog water category is because of who his coach is. I mean, I think we all can agree that before Sean Payton took that year off after he got let go by New Orleans, Sean Payton was a top 4 coach in the NFL, maybe even top 3. You know what? I'll say top 4 because you had Reed, you had McVay, you have Shanahan. And in my opinion, the next best was Sean Payton. And yes, that includes Bill Belichick. Payton is an offensive genius. He hasn't lost any of that. His schemes are still the same that he used to run in New Orleans. So the problem has been the defense for the Broncos, but Russell Wilson hasn't done anything to elevate his play. I know his numbers are kind of solid, but if you watch that, it's a lot of like empty calories. Russell Wilson's, stat line looks, hey, he was 22 of 28 for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. But that last touchdown came at the very end of the game when they were already down 28-7 or 34-7. So Russell's numbers might not correlate to how he's performing on the field, but he's really not doing anything to elevate the Broncos. And I think that's the problem. This is also baked in with his contract. His contract is one of the worst. It's the second worst in the NFL, only behind Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, I couldn't get him and Jimmy Garoppolo in for whatever reason the graphic wouldn't take, but they would be hanging on by a thread as well. The only contract worse in the NFL is Deshaun Watson, other than Russell Wilson's. So I look at all of those things kind of baked together in one crap cake, and that's why I have Russell as far down as there. Plus, the team's already come out and said they're going to be drafting a quarterback. Whether that means that Russell's going to be a bridge guy next year, whether that means he'll be a backup, who knows? But Russell Wilson is not the quarterback for the Broncos going forward. I kind of view Justin Fields and Russell Wilson in the same vein in this category. The reason I have Russ lower than Fields is because we look at Fields and Russ's performances and saying, you're not doing anything to win. Your numbers don't look that bad. But the difference being in that head coach. We believe.
I don't know. I think Fields' numbers do look that bad.
They're about the exact same as Russell Wilson's. They're almost identical. Almost. And think about it. Fields has already missed almost an entire game.
But I'm saying that's kind of more or less my point. Like, they have okay-ish numbers. And okay-ish numbers get you bottom average.
But look at the coaching difference. Russell Wilson has Sean Payton. He's got Eberflus. Yeah,
correct, which I still look at, though, and it's like, yes, but here's the difference. Justin is a better athlete than Russell. Russell's older. Russell isn't doing the same things that he used to. He's not doing the things that he did in Seattle, because when he was in Seattle, that mobility scramble stuff was definitely part of his game and had to be part of his game. And now that he doesn't have as much of that, it's not as good and effective for him. He's not as good in the pocket as he was, but you can look and say Fields is the exact same. Fields is not very good in the pocket because he just doesn't read the field well. He's slow. He is mentally slow when it comes to reading the field. And that's a hard part. I say this a lot, and like, I don't know how many people don't understand, but it's like, I'm a Bears fan. I've been a Bears fan my entire life, being born and grew up in Chicago. Like, I want to see the Bears do well, but having been someone who played football for basically my entire life and has been ensconced in the game of football for my entire life and breaks down games and plays and looks at it from my defensive side of the game, being a linebacker, being a safety, and what I look at from quarterbacks of what they're showing me based off of my experience of playing on the opposite side, has to do with he is not a good quarterback. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he's not a good quarterback. He's not a guy that I'd ever be threatened of. It's like, okay, yeah, he might run a couple times, but like, I'm not scared of his arm. I'm not scared of him putting it into tight windows. I'm not really scared of getting beat, other than now with DJ Moore. But even then with DJ Moore, it's not like they're going over the top with it. It's like DJ Moore is basically turned into a phenomenal kick returner because they're throwing these screen passes. And so they're putting these corners out on islands trying to tackle him. And DJ Moore is a big guy, but he's just elusive enough to kind of break and get a lot of yak. And that's the big thing with Fields. Fields is not a great thrower of the football, and it has to do with he's mentally slow. He doesn't read the field well. He doesn't go through his progression well. And when he actually does see something, he's taking too long to actually go. He has no timing. He doesn't have great footwork. And so comparatively to the rest of these guys on this list, like, that's where I look at with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson kind of sees the field slow. But Zach Wilson, when you tell him to be on time and you say, hey, here's a really, really plain Jane concept, and basically you're going to take 3 steps, and when your back foot plants, you're throwing it to your number one because the number one is wide open and it's only a 4-yard pass. That's the big difference between seeing something like, even like with Purdy. Purdy's not phenomenal. He's not overly athletic. He's not overly strong. He's not overly mobile, overly, too big or anything. It has to do with he throws on time, he gets it to the open guy. And that's why we're now going to see something with the Bears with Bagent is Bagent throws on time. Bagent throws, he plants his foot, and he gets the ball out, and he lets his athletes and receivers and other players go and do the work. Justin is trying to take it into too much of account of his own self, and he's trying to do this, and it's hero ball, the same way that Josh Allen does. He doesn't trust any of his teammates. He wants to be the one making the big plays. He wants to be one making the highlights. He wants to be the reason why they win. But when you play that way, you're the reason why you lose. And as a quarterback, you can't be the reason the team loses. Like if your defense just gets run over, it gets run over. Like that's not on a quarterback. But if you go out there and you're throwing picks and you're turning the ball over and you're going 3 and out and you're making your defense be out there a lot longer than they have to be, then that's on you. And
Well,
that's a
and
problem with a lot of
going
quarterbacks in this league.
going back to what you said about Bagent, sorry, because his nickname is now Secret Bagent Man. The good thing about Bagent is, and what all of his teammates have applauded him for, is that he makes confident decisions and he keeps drives sustained. The Bears were 61% this last weekend on third down, which means their defense got to sit back, take their time, and correct me if I'm wrong. You played defense your entire life. A lot of what being a really good defense is having that time to relax and chill and just wait and just like catch your breath, go over some different concepts, some different formations with your guys. And then as soon as the offense is off the field, okay, we're back on, we're ready to rock and roll, because there's not nearly as much, there's not much creativity or as much creativity on defense as there is on offense. There's no play design really, rather than just here's where you're sitting in coverage. Here's what you're doing on this play and not. So I'm going to keep it to you. Is that more of a, why the defense is like Bagent style of play, is because they get that time to sit back, relax, and then go back out refreshed.
Yeah, and I mean it's part of this reason. So like the really good defenses, basically they're not on the field very long. That's the main key. The best defenses, they get stops on third down, so they get off the field. The really, really good team. So I think this is also part like I'm going to touch on the Dolphins real quick. I think this is one of the things that actually hurts the Dolphins is the Dolphins are such a big play offense that their defense might, be out there and they might get a stop and they might get the ball back to their offense. But then the problem is their offense doesn't take any time. Their offense has this electric big play. We can go score instantaneously. And so what happens a lot of these times, I think what's going on sometimes with the Dolphins and why their defense doesn't look so great against some of these better defense or better teams, I should say, is they just will make a stop and the Dolphins will go score too fast. And then the defense is right back out there on the field. But like you look at the really, 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 really good teams, and it's like, who owns the time of possession? The team that wins the game normally owns time of possession because the offense is out there. They're up, 7 or 10, and they're basically running the ball and they're taking as much time off the clock as possible. And that's the one part of football that people really don't understand. They don't understand that chess mass part of it, where it's, hey, it's not just about scoring points. Like we want to, yes, score points, but we also want to take a bunch of time off the clock. So that's why even sometimes with defenses, like people will get really upset. So to that point of like, hey, our offense just got, they went on the field, they went 3 and out. And so we're going right back out on the field. We're all still pretty tired. So we're not going to, immediately going to try to go out there. We're not going to run a blitz. We're not going to run a bunch of high pressure stuff to try to get the 3 and out right away. Like we just got off the field. We're going to kind of give up some yardage. We're going to play off the ball. We're going to allow them to catch some stuff underneath, not give up the big play, and kind of more or less play prevent. And there's times where, hey, we're cool with a field goal. Like we give up a field goal, that's great. Especially comes with field position. Like if your offense gives up the ball in your own territory, and as a defense, you go out there and your back's against the wall, like that's a tough situation. You feel like you win when you come off the field with a field goal. And that's something that too many teams, again, still don't do. So you've got Bagent who runs the offense and they keep the offense out there. They convert on third down. They take time off the clock. They get the defense that time to rest. So that way, when they do come back out on the field, those down linemen, they can actually get a pass rush. They can get to the quarterback. They can disrupt the timing. Then it makes it easier for those guys in the back end trying to cover in space, trying to stay, close to these receivers. And, everyone's gassed at the end of the day. Like, it's not like these guys aren't not conditioned. It's you are conditioned, but how many times are you being asked to run, a sprint for
Right.
15 seconds? And when you're out there on defense the entire game, it's hard to win football games that way.
Right. No, and I totally agree with you with the Bajent point is that he's so much more Mitch Trubisky than he is, a guy like Justin Fields. He's so much closer to that. And I think one of the things that Bears fans really enjoyed, and this is just coming from what I watched the entire game. I watched every snap. It was a boring game, but in all of the right ways. There was no fireworks. We went out, we executed a really solid 1985 game plan, which was we're going to run the ball 75% of the time. We're going to throw when we need to throw to convert third downs to get huge chunk plays so that we can run for a first down on second down and 3 and just keep the clock moving. And then, of course, I'll give Eberflus credit to, here. I think he's not a great head coach. And in fact, I think he's still on the hot seat. Butt's probably still on fire. But one of the things that I've noticed about the way he coaches his defense is that he relies on really, really solid safeties and corners to get the job done in that backfield, like way back there. And he relies on the front 4 guys to try and get enough pressure. He's never been a guy that relies on blitzing to get the job done. He relies on the guys that have the talent where they do, Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, to make those plays. And when you can have an offense run kind of like how Badgett ran it, that is something that's fantastic. And that's why I think we've seen so many bad defensive performances from the Bears, is because Justin is very much big play. It's to DJ Moore for a 15-yard out. DJ Moore catches it, runs for a touchdown, quick play. Defense is right back out there. That's why the Bears give up so many, points, is because Justin is either 3 and out or he's huge play. And Bajent was like, no, we're going to take a 6.5-minute drive, 7-minute drive. Sit back. We got this. And if it comes out that we, only get 3 points, we have enough faith that our corners are going to go out there and get the job done. The Bears now, in the last 2 weeks, have done a sensational job in their defensive secondary. A sensation, even against the Vikings, only held them to 13 points. Granted, it was without Justin Jefferson, and against Brian Hoyer on the Raiders. But they started to look like they were turning a corner. And that, I believe, is why you need to leave Bajent in, because you can get the job done with this Bears defense. I'm not saying you're going to win every game, but this is a team that, based off the defensive productivity that I've seen, plus the way Bajent runs the offense, this is easily a team that could get up to 7 to 8 wins.
Yeah, I kind of push back on that point, because it's kind of almost the same like with the Patriots and the fact that, Mac Jones and the Patriots were able to beat the Bills this past weekend. And you don't want to go out there trying to lose games. You don't want to go out there telling your team, hey guys, because there's a lot of those guys that are playing for contracts. There's a lot of those guys trying to play to get, another spot, another place. They need something. And there is a certain level of how do we play competitively and lose? Because for the Bears in this situation, like, they're in the perfect situation, having Carolina's pick and having their own first pick still. The fact that Carolina is most likely going to end up with the number 1 because Bryce Young and that entire team is just terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
The Bears are going to have the number 1 again.
Yep.
The second part of this is, if they're able to have their own pick inside of the top 5, that completely changes the game, and they will be able to wheel and deal at a different level that we've never seen before. The Bears can literally go from this bad, mediocre to possibly average team the way that they're built right now. They can go to a Super Bowl contending team the next day. Like, the season will end, and if the Carolina Panthers have the number 1 pick and the Bears have a top 5 pick, the Bears, if done correctly, will turn themselves into a Super Bowl roster in 1 year. That is how advantageous this situation is currently, that the Bears have with the quarterback talent, the wide receiver talent, even the offensive line talent that is coming out in this next year's draft. There is no reason the Bears can't they should be able to overload their entire system. They should be able to get every single piece. And basically be able to get it for a very high price. They don't need the first pick.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I
yes.
would.
I mean, yes, taking Caleb does completely change your franchise. And I think that I'll quickly touch on the Caleb thing. I think Jim Harbaugh has a very good chance of not being at Michigan next year. I think if Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan and ends up with the Bears, I think Caleb Williams changes his complete tune about,
Oh
hey,
yeah,
I don't know.
100%.
I don't know what teams I want to play for. And I think that's the other thing. I think Caleb needs to scale back on the, hey, I want ownership in a team. Hey, I think I can make all this money in college. Hey, I think I can do all this, because all of that's bullshit. And like all the people in the NFL know that too, because it's all about your second contract. In
Yeah,
NIL, yeah, you might be able to make 10, 15, maybe $20 million in a year, but you're not going to get the 2, 3, 4, $500 million contracts like Patrick Mahomes got in his, because that's not how NIL works. Yeah, you can
right.
get some good brand deals and you can get some sponsorships and whatnot, but there's nothing like an NFL contract, especially when you're signed as the franchise guy, the face of the franchise, the long term, you're our Super Bowl guy, you're the main guy. Look at Dak Prescott. Look at Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. The fact that they are on every single commercial. Like
Yeah,
the money truly made is not in college. And I love Caleb. I think he's a phenomenal talent. But the things that he's asking, the things that he's trying to do, they're downright absurd. He has no leg to stand on. He hasn't thrown a single pass in the NFL. He hasn't beaten a single team in the NFL. He hasn't beaten Notre Dame, let alone trying to shit. He hasn't beaten Utah, let alone trying
yeah,
to beat an actual NFL franchise. And I get it.
yeah.
Being a good quarterback doesn't mean that, the rest of your team is good and solid, and USC definitely has some holes. But the problem is, as the transformational talent that he is, you look at the last couple that came out. Trevor Lawrence, generational transformative talent, never lost on a Saturday, and went to 3 college football playoffs and won a championship. That's the difference. Is like Caleb's not going to be playing in the biggest of big games. And the big games that he has now played in against teams that are comparable and are an actual decent roster, he's not as good against them. He doesn't do the
No,
crazy flashy crazy part. So, yes, I think Caleb Williams is a very good quarterback. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback in the league because he plays a style of football that is close to a Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's nearly as good. I don't think he's as talented. I don't think he's as cerebral. And
no.
it's also going to come in part with he doesn't have Andy Reid, but there are things that he does well. But I think with the Bears, there's a great guy in in Penix that's playing out in Washington who is
Mhm.
old, seasoned, has a bunch of reps. And then you've got the same guy in the same conference named Bo Nix, who is also a guy who can come in. And I think he's a better version of what we're seeing now with Bagent. Like you want a guy who can come in, throw on time, make the right plays, plant his foot, get the ball out, still mobile. He's a big guy, strong, has a strong arm, can throw the ball through the wind in Chicago, deal with the cold weather, deal with Green Bay, deal with, having to play outdoors in Chicago all the time. But then you get the 2 games in the dome. He's mobile enough, can do enough. And so both of those 2 guys are both comparable enough and can get the job done. Because if you trade back that one, you can get a star player plus
You get the
picks
farm.
and
Yeah.
some other low level guys. Like the Bears can do whatever they want. And I think that's where it's going to come down to polls, but we'll see if that happens. I just
Well,
I
no,
it,
I see where
there's
you're
so many
coming
ways
from.
to go with it. It's
There are tons
frustrating.
of it. It is frustrating being a Bears fan. I can tell you that. We both are Bears fans. I truly contend still, and this is the final point that I'll make on it before we move over to your graphic. The Bear Poles he did a pretty good job in the offseason. It's clear to see the talent on the team is better. We still have the biggest question mark at head coach, and we have the biggest question mark at quarterback. And those are the 2 things you can't have a question mark at. Outside of that, I actually, other than a few pieces like an edge rusher here, another safety there, maybe a little bit more running back depth, I don't have much of a problem with the way the Bears are constructed right now. I think, maybe another offensive lineman piece, a center would be really nice. Good freaking God, is our center bad? Cody Whitehair doesn't even deserve to be, to be in the league. There's a couple of pieces here and there, but I think what you're looking at is if Bagent wins against the Chargers this Sunday night on Sunday Night Football, I think you really have to start having some serious quarterback controversy in Chicago and say, what is Bagent the bridge guy going forward? And if he is, how do we move Justin as quick as possible? Because his trade value will plummet.
Yeah, that's definitely the piece there too. And that's where as soon as he won that other week, I was kind of like he's kind of looked good. Like, hey, Fields played a good game. Get rid of him now. And that's kind of what people are talking about with Kirk at this situation. But the difference with Kirk is it's like we all kind of know what's going on with Kirk. The only team that I would, pick up the phone and try to get Kirk to take his no trade clause off for is San Francisco. If
Yeah.
I'm Kyle Shanahan, I call the Vikings and I'm like, hey, dude, like, I know you just beat us, but like, what if you take Purdy? Like, even swap. You take Purdy, we take Cousins, we'll throw you a pick. Like,
Oof.
even keel. Like, hey,
I don't. Oof. Well, here's what you have to ask yourself. And again, last thing, Kings fan, are you drafting a quarterback next year? Because if you're taking
depends.
Purdy
Well,
and you're going to say we're going to extend Purdy and make him the franchise
see,
guy,
whoa. No, you don't do that. No, Purdy's not that good. Purdy is not that good. Let's put that on the table right now. Purdy is not that good. You put Purdy with the Vikings and you expect him to do Kirk Cousins things, not going to happen. He's not good enough. We saw it in that game. He's not good enough. Even the game that they lost the week before against the Browns, he literally threw an interception that first play of that game, the game, setting up potential game winning field goal that got missed. Yeah, it should have been a pick pass the first play. So he does that a lot. He's really not as good as everyone makes him out to be, but that's neither here nor there. And you're going to see that in my graphic now.
All right. Well, let's go to your graphic. And this, tell us real quick. What is the name of this graphic, real quick, before we get into it?
This is my NFL pyramid. This is all the teams ranked on the pyramid. So this is not the standings. This has nothing to do with the standings. Now, if you look at some of these teams, you will think, oh, why is this team ranked where this team is? At the top, SBOB, it is Super Bowl or bust. For these four teams are good enough to make it to the Super Bowl and be competitive in that Super Bowl with whoever they're going to play against. Yes, you might say the Lions just played the Ravens and they just got mopped. Yes, I understand that. The Lions are not prepared for Lamar Jackson. I think if they had to play again today, I think that is a very competitive game just based off the way the Lions are constructed. And I think that they will do just fine. And honestly, I think the Lions are better than the 49ers in a head-to-head matchup purely because of Jared Goff. And I think now the fact that the 49ers have lost back-to-back weeks, and now they're going to be looking at a situation where they've got the Bengals coming to town off a bye. They might be looking at 3 straight to drop. They don't know what's going on in division with the Seahawks. So there could be some things there where if you're having to go on the road and if Detroit's the number 1 seed, I don't know. It's really hard to go on the road and win playoff games in the NFL. And so that's the reason why I've got the Lions where they are. Baltimore showed, hey, we're a good team when our receivers can catch. We've got a really good defense that takes the ball away. It's pretty evident Lamar Jackson is now playing very, very solid football, and he's looking a lot more like his MVP season than anything else. Eagles, I put them here based solely on the fact that, like, they have an identity, but the issue is if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, I don't think it has to do with their actual roster. I think it actually has to do with Hurts. I think Hurts now being slightly injured and the way that they do the tush push, the brotherly shove, the, whatever scrum, terrible play that we want to call that. I get it. It's a QB
first
sneak.
downs.
It gets 1-2 yards every single time. But I think the NFL will have something to say about it here soon. But then you got the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I think, are the best team in the NFL by far. They've got the best quarterback, the best coach, the arguable best defense. And I think that they're the number 1 defense. I mean, you could have said the Browns, but the Colts and Gardner Minshew just put 38 points up on the Browns. So I think they're the youngest. They are the youngest defense. They're one of the fastest defenses, and they're very, very solid. Moving on to the playoffs tier. San Fran, Seattle, and Jacksonville, along with the Steelers, Dolphins, Falcons, Cowboys, and Bucks. So this part of this pyramid is essentially teams that I expect to make the playoffs, potentially win a game, look competitive, maybe even make a run to the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game. Like, I really think the Jags, they've got a really solid chance. I think a good season for them is making the AFC Championship game. That's a step more than they made it last year. Having to face the Chiefs in Arrowhead after that huge emotional win last year against the Chargers. It was tough. They played competitively. They played well. I think the next step for them is getting one more step. I think them playing in the Arrowhead Invitational in the AFC Championship game will be fantastic. I do not think that they're going to beat the Chiefs in any regard. But my big one here is the Bucs and the Falcons. The reason why both of these are on here is because I think that they're the same team. They are pretty much the same team. I think Baker is better than Ritter. I think that's pretty evident. He's just been in the league longer. He's more seasoned. The Bucs have slightly better weapons on the outside that they actually get the ball out to with Mike Evans and just some of the things that they have constructed going on there. But what's tough for them is it's also Baker Mayfield. So you don't know which Baker Mayfield's going to show up. And so sometimes you might get the Baker Mayfield that showed up on Sunday and blew the game to the Falcons. Then you have, on the opposite hand, you have Ritter, who was single-handedly trying to give the game back to the Buccaneers. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but the NFC South is so bad, and the NFC North is pretty bad. Like, there has to be 7 teams that make it from the NFC, and currently, the Vikings, I'm pretty sure, hold that 7th spot. So. It's a bad, it's a bad grouping of things. Like the top, with the Eagles, Lions, and then you can make the argument for San Fran and Seattle. Like, those are all solid teams. You can throw Dallas in there, and I think Dallas is the same. I don't think Dallas is any better than the Eagles. I think they're going to win a wild card game. They're going to, then get blown out in round 2. Like, they're not good enough with Dak. They're not good enough overall. They just make mistakes, and it's the Cowboys. So that when it comes time for pressure, they're not there. The Dolphins can't beat any good teams. And we know that when it comes time for playoffs, that normally means cold weather. And I don't think the Miami Dolphins will be playing at home through the entirety of the playoffs. And so having to go on the road, playing the cold, is not a fan for them. But the shocking of this entire thing is actually the Steelers and the fact that they're 4-2. That first loss that came to the 49ers, everyone was like, yeah, the Steelers are terrible. But it's like, the 49ers are a really good team. Like, it's really hard to beat really, really solid teams in this league. And, first game of the season, being prepped, being ready, rock and rolling. It's just tough. But they're 4-2. They just went on the road. They beat a solid Rams team. I don't think the Rams are fantastic. As you can see in this next grouping, there is my scrappy teams. And basically these teams, they can win any week, and they can kind of hang with any team any week, but they're more or less the teams that I entirely don't really want to play very much. We see it with the Vikings. Like, Kirk Cousins just won in prime time, like, without Justin Jefferson. Weird. The Bills, you never know which Josh Allen you're going to get. So if you get the wow Josh Allen, like, good luck. But if you get the bad Josh Allen, then it's like, oh, we can beat this team. The same goes for the Chargers. Like, if you're going to get the terrible play calling Brandon Staley, if you're going to get, them blowing whatever lead and plays that they have, like, they should have beaten the Dolphins at the beginning of the year.
Right.
But they didn't, because they're the Chargers. So they're a tough team. They're a tough out. The same goes for the Colts. Again, they just put 38 points up on the Browns defense, which was literally one of the best defenses in, like, the last however many years. The Rams,
40 years, yeah.
Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Stafford is solid. Sean McVay, like Aaron Donald on the opposite side. They're just a solid team. They're a couple pieces away, but they're a solid team. They're a team that, again, I wouldn't really want to play them. I mean, the fact that
they also have the youngest defense in the entire NFL. So, I mean,
which is
last
always
year it was
a
Kansas City.
plus.
This year it's the Rams,
which is always a plus. And their only thing is kind of that same thing for the Chargers. Is it's like a lot of their home games aren't even home games. It's kind of like they're playing a essentially like neutral site field on, a lot of these. But I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of terrible towels. I mean, but that's just Pittsburgh. I mean, they are truly Pittsburgh is truly America's team. If you look at it numbers wise, in terms of like actual fans across the board, you'll see terrible towels everywhere. It doesn't matter the sporting event. The Texans and CJ Stroud are playing fantastic. I don't know if Derek Carr and the Saints, what to expect from them. But the problem is it's not really Derek Carr. It's like Alvin Kamara, and you have Chris Olave. You have an okay defense. Like, it's pretty average, but there are a lot of weapons on offense that it's like, why aren't they better than they are? And then you look at the Browns, and their defense is great. They don't really have too much on offense. That both kind of goes for PJ Walker and Deshaun. Like, I think at this point, they're almost the same kind of almost guy. But now you have the Bengals. And the reason the Bengals are on this tier is because they have the toughest schedule coming up. They have an absolute gauntlet of a schedule the rest of the way. And having those early losses that they had, getting off to that poor start with an injured Joe Burrow. But now the fact that he's getting back healthy, now coming back off a bye, now starting to get back into the groove, this team could get hot the same way that they did last year. And with the pieces that they have and the way that they can score the football, I'd be terrified to play this team, especially if I'm the 49ers this week, coming off that bye for them. And then the Jets are 500. I didn't think that the Jets were going to go 500 with Aaron Rodgers the first 6 games. So the fact that the Jets are sitting here at 3-3 right now, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I understand, hey, they snuck out a way to beat the Bills early in the season, but it's like,
I think Robert
I don't
Saleh is
know.
better than people give him credit for. I think
But
he's a lot. You have that stigma of being the Jets coach, right? So, and the Jets historically have had really bad coaches. So I think you lump him in there, and especially with Zach Wilson, having been the starter for the last however many years, I think he really knows defense, and I think he knows how to coach a game. I think he's just dealing with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league.
and which is true, and I think now Zach has had a little bit more time. He looks a little bit more comfortable. He's still not very good, but
No.
it's one of those where it's like that defense is really good. Their running game is really good. So Zach Wilson shouldn't have to do much. And when he's not asked to do much and the defense is playing hot, they get an early turnover and they get humming and get a lead. The Jets honestly are a hard team to beat just because they can run the football. And then this bottom tier, every single one of these teams needs to do all that they can when it comes to scouting. They need to have all the guys in the stands. They need to be at every game. They need to be giant screen TV, like full media hub, watching as many games as they can, because all of these teams need a lot of help. The Bears still need some help. The Packers still need some help. The Panthers, clearly the worst team in the league. There's out of 22 starters, I guarantee you they should be able to find 20 new guys next year. The Broncos,
it's bad.
The Broncos, I don't know. I get weird on the Broncos because the Broncos are bad, but they're not Panthers bad. Like, I think the Broncos is more of like a 5-guy problem than, hey, we need to overhaul everything. The same goes kind of for the Giants. The Giants made a mistake with their quarterback. They made a mistake in, giving Daniel Jones the 4-year deal, and they kind of have to make it through next year in terms of like the way that the cap and the dead money would hit. So for them, I don't know. Like, there's an interesting way that they would have to go about it, but then it's like the Commanders. I'm more interested in knowing about how the petition is going for them to go back to the Redskins than actually anything else. The Raiders,
worst offensive line in the league. It's terrible.
I mean, I'm interested to see if Josh McDaniels goes and reconnects with Bill Belichick and saves his career again. I think third time's a charm. I think, when we saw McDaniels not work in Denver, that should have been a clear sign. Hey, it's clearly not working with the Raiders. A lot of the same issues. He's a coordinator. Send him back to Bill, hang out in New England, try to renege on old house sales or whatever, or find an old apartment or condo or Airbnb or whatever. Get your old place that you used to live at. Like, you're better off. The Cardinals, we know the Cardinals are bad, but there's not really much there.
We weren't expecting much.
The Patriots, again, get Josh McDaniels back. If Josh McDaniels comes back to the building, I think that they could be working with something. I think you send Mac Jones to the Raiders. So here's the thing. If Josh McDaniels doesn't get fired, you send Mac Jones to the Raiders. You then bring in an actual quarterback, because they're going to have a decent pick. And so what I'm kind of interested I think Bo Nix might end up with the Patriots. That could be interesting. Bo
I
Nix,
mean,
Bo Nix could work. Bo
look,
Nix could definitely work.
there's a lot of guys that here's what I'm interested to see. Does Bill Belichick actually make the move next year to get an elite offensive coordinator? Because I truly believe Bill Belichick thinks that he knows the game of football so much that he can just hire whomever at offensive coordinator and it's going to work because
I mean,
he's
Bill O'Brien isn't bad.
He's not bad, dude. They put up
bad.
two back-to-back weeks. They scored a combined 3 points. Don't tell me he's not bad. He's terrible.
Okay. They played the Cowboys and scored 3 points, and they should have scored 10. Then
10. That's huge. That's big time.
Okay, but Mac Jones also has no weapons. In terms of scouting college football playoffs, I know Bill hates receivers, and he wants to draft a guy from Northwestern, Institute of Dubuque Technology or whatever to get the perfect guy that fits in whatever system. But they need some real actual talent and some weapons out there because Mac can't do it all on his own. He can't throw to himself. He's really not as bad as he might look. I mean, he's a bottom third guy, but if you get him the right pieces, he's a pretty accurate thrower of the football. He might be able to get something done. I just don't think he's going to be in the building anymore. So he either gets shipped to Vegas or McDaniels comes back. And then with the Titans, I mean, they're pretty much they're an organization that basically drafts and brings in really good players and scouts really good players and then sends them to the Eagles. So I think that's exactly what that's meant to do. Howie Roseman is running that organization with the Eagles and somehow has some ties to whatever is going on with the Titans, and the Titans just giving up whatever good players they have straight to him. So I don't know entirely what they're doing. Maybe they're looking at college football playoff as like, hey, maybe we can get some guys, or maybe the Eagles can be really, really good next year. So I don't know. But that is my tiers.
I look at this and I have only a couple of issues with it. The first one being Super Bowl or bust. When I hear Super Bowl or bust, those teams are, if we don't win a Super Bowl this year, it is considered a bad season, or at least getting to the Super Bowl. The Lions have been good.
That's what I want with these. I want these teams to get to the Super Bowl.
But still, to my point, the Lions have been good for an hour.
If they don't make it this year, I don't think they won't make it next year.
But I'm telling you,
their window is this big.
It might be that big, but I'm telling you, they've been good for an hour. If they make the playoffs, that franchise will be elated.
Oh, exactly. Which I understand this. For Lions fans, I get it. You guys have literally not won a playoff game in what, 25 years?
Last time they went to the playoffs was what, 2013? It's been 10 years since they even made the playoffs?
I think so. And I'm pretty sure they won in the 90s, maybe. They won a game, I think, in the 90s. So I get it. It's not the whole, like, hey, we're going to be upset. Like, yeah, they can essentially be the first seed. And even if they lose in the divisional round, people will still be like, we made the playoffs. Like, I get it. Like that.
So when I say, but I guess we just have different ideas.
My reason on bust is if the Lions don't make it to the Super Bowl or win multiple playoff games this year, I don't know when they're going to next, because the Bears, if they don't mess it up, if the Bears don't mess it up, the Bears will be a very good team next year. Even if the Vikings don't mess it up, and the same goes for the Packers. The Packers, they're a solid franchise. They do things the correct way. They're not going to be bad for multiple years. They're going to rebound and they're going to bring in some pieces. So they're going to be better and more comparable next year. So now you're looking at a situation where it's like, the Lions are easily the best team in the NFC North. But if next year it turns into like, hey, instead of going 6-0 in the division, you now go 3-3, that is a drastic change that might leave you in either a wild card spot or potentially missing the playoffs in general. I just think that if they don't win now, I don't know when they will.
I agree with you. I agree with you in that sense because look, the Lions literally have everything going for them. They have very competent defense. I wouldn't say it's good. I would say it's top 15, but it's closer to 15 than it is to 10. I'd probably say it's like 13 or 14th in the league. They've got a franchise quarterback. They've got the best offensive line in football. They've got a number one receiver, a very solid receiving core. Everything is going well for the Lions. So I agree with what you're saying. Every part of they've got probably the most well-rounded unit in the NFL. Would you agree with that statement in terms of like all pieces, all like defense, offense, every single side of the ball, every position at, they are the most well-rounded. Probably not the best at one particular thing, but the best all around. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike, I agree with you. If they don't win, what else do you need to what else can you get? If you're the best all around, how can you get better? But here's what I will say from a standpoint, an entire the history of the organization. This is not a team that I believe knows how to compete in the playoffs. I think this is a team like, holy crap, we're in the playoffs. And you're probably right. They'll probably win a game. But I do not see this team even making the NFC Championship game. They're still the Lions. You still have to prove that you can win those games. And you haven't been in those games, let alone try to win them. So I think I would have had the Lions just a tier lower. I would have had them in playoffs, probably closer to San Francisco than they are to the Falcons or the Buccaneers. But that's a playoff team. And then also my other issue is the Bills at Scrappy. I would have the Bills a tier higher only because if I told you tomorrow the Bills were going to be in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, you would be like, yeah, I could see that.
Nope, I don't.
Oh, yes, you would. 100% you would.
Nope. Nope. And here's my reason why. They're not any better than the Ravens. They're not better than the Chiefs. So running just off of those two, who are they going to? Which one of those two teams are they going to beat to get to the AFC Championship game?
I think they could absolutely beat the Chiefs this year. Absolutely.
Not at all. Not at all. Do you understand how good this Chiefs defense is? The Chiefs defense is absolutely outstanding. The way that the Bills team is organized, that's not going to happen. The Chiefs own the Bills. They live rent-free in their head. People give Josh Allen so much credit for losing that electric game to the Chiefs. And that's the reason why the Bills are always ranked so high. The Bills, you're right. They're a wild card potential team. I do not see them playing very much. They should have lost to Skylar Thompson last year, and then they got routed at home against the Bengals. They are not a good team. They are just blatantly not. Everyone wants to keep carrying this same stuff over. The more film you get on Josh Allen, the more times he plays more like a roller coaster. The more times we see him play poorly, people automatically go, yeah. But look at what he did against. No, he lost against the Chiefs and consistently loses against the Chiefs. He loses against the Bengals consistently now, and especially got blown out at home. At home. It would be different if you went to Cincinnati and got your butt kicked that way. But this was at home. I think the Diggs issue between those two is a still now festering issue. We saw it last year in the playoff game. We saw it this offseason. And now we've already seen it in these first 7 weeks. That is a big issue. Coach McDermott doesn't know how to really coach this team very well. I think he's part of the problem. I think the way that the team was constructed, they had their chance 2 years ago in that game that they lost against the Chiefs. That was the best season that they would have had. That was their chance. Their door got slammed in their face. Then they need to reconstruct. They need to rebuild. Josh Allen, yes, is a fine player going forward, but not the way that this team is built. They are very easy to beat. And again, we just saw them lose to the Jets and the Patriots, 2 teams that people would say are bottom 5 teams or bottom 7 teams in this league. And you do not win multiple playoff games if you lost to the Jets and the Patriots, who are bottom scale franchises.
That's also That's also a divisional game.
Whoa.
It's a divisional game.
Also, correct. So you then have to play them again. And if they already
And
have it,
you mean to think they're going to get swept by both of those teams?
I do not think
Come
they will
on.
get swept by both teams, but they struggled with the Jets last year. They
And they
struggled.
powerhoused Miami. They
Oh,
slaughtered Miami.
yeah,
Absolutely
Miami was
crushed.
and Miami was riding high, and that was just fine for Miami. And Miami is a very easy team that is able to be beat because it's pretty easy to beat Miami. Don't get beat over the top, take a lot of time off the clock, and you can pretty much beat the Dolphins. There's not much to it. They, in terms of glass chin, they are someone, if you hit hard enough, they're done. The Jags also are way better than the Bills, and that's the reason you saw the Jags kick their ass over in London. And so if they had to play again, I think the Jags
were there for 2 weeks. It's a London
bullshit,
game. You got to go overseas. You got jet lag. You got all of that.
Jet lag my ass. Jet lag my ass.
You can't.
So why'd they drag in the game against the Patriots then? Were they jet lagged in that little jaunt from Buffalo, New York to New England? Huh? No. That's absolute.
I'm not denying that they played bad against New England.
You could have flied sooner. You could have gotten there anytime you wanted to after that game. You could have left whenever. The Jags being over there for 2 weeks, I do not credit the jet lag to the reason why they were better. The Jags are just an overall better football team.
I think you should.
I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Josh Allen. I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Josh Allen. I think they have a better run game, and I think they have a more cohesive defense. Period. I also think they have the better coach.
I think they've got
better quarterback.
No,
better defense. Better coach, better quarterback, better defense. 3 most important things. Jags, better. Chiefs, better coach, better quarterback, better defense. Ravens, better coach, better quarterback, better defense. That's 3 teams that you're not better than in the AFC. You're not making the AFC Championship game in that regard. And plus, like even to this credit, I don't know, the way that the Steelers are kind of playing, the Steelers might be able to hang around with the Bills.
With that offense, with that shot, that little BD cap gun offense that they've got over there, and Matt Canada calling plays.
I think Matt Canada is an idiot. But we are talking about how good the Ravens are, and the Steelers beat the Ravens. So
because of a dropped ball in the end zone and 3 dropped passes from wide open receivers. It happened in the end zone. It happened with Nelson Aguilar. Don't tell me that.
Wait, hold on. Has Nelson Aguilar never dropped a pass in the NFL before? Has Nelson Aguilar ever dropped a pass in the NFL? Or is he consistently known for being the number one guy in the NFL to drop passes?
You cannot give credit to the Steelers in that game because they played like shit.
They won the football game.
No, they won because Baltimore lost.
Not matter.
No,
it does.
Baltimore lost. That's the difference.
Was it a W in the win column?
You can categorize it any way you want. You can categorize it any way you want. You know as well as I do, the Steelers are not a good football team. I don't even know why they're in that playoffs category.
I think they're 4-2. They are 4-2 currently. They beat the Ravens, and just by beating the Ravens, I get it. You understand what they've done to Lamar Jackson the last couple years. They beat them a lot, which makes them a lot better of a team than what people really want to understand. Kenny Pickett, he's not outstanding.
He's not even.
He's good. Not tremendous.
Not even good.
Oh, he's better than you think.
No,
he's a lot better than you. Stands in there. He stands on the pocket and delivers the football. They've got a solid offensive line that rallies around him. He does the right thing. Matt Canada is an idiot. You know who changed the play and is the reason they won that game? Yeah. Kenny Pickett changed the play and got the ball to Pickens, who is an outstanding receiver that no one talks about. And that dude, all you have to do is put it somewhere near him and it's going to be caught. Pickens is phenomenal. Pickett can get it to him. Matt Canada is realistically the only thing that's holding them back. But we're looking at this in a situation. The Bills, again, couldn't barely beat Skylar Thomas last year. And that was really, really close. I think this defense and TJ Watt would give a lot of trouble to Josh Allen. A lot. I don't think their offensive line is fantastic. They still don't have much of a running game. They still don't really have much of an identity on offense, except for Josh Allen, please save us. And that's very, very, very easy to stop. It's very easy to stop.
Well, we'll have to see. We're only halfway in through the season. That's your week 7 breakdown, your NFL teams pyramid, and your NFL QB tiers from Say It Like You See It, live from the heart of Packers country. Hopefully, next week we have some more good news to talk about the Green Bay Packers because things are not okay here in Green Bay. We've also got some more stuff to talk about. The NBA season is going to be starting up, so we've got a lot coming your way on Say It Like You See It
Look
from
out,
Fond du Lac,
Warriors.
Wisconsin. Hey, look out, Warriors. From Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and from Texas. I am Trace the Moose Moustakas signing off, as well as my partner in crime, Quinn Redmond. Thank you, guys. We will see you soon.